I don't know if I call her my protege, but she's one of those types. She calls me all the time. I talk to her. She is just near and dear to our hearts here at Bat Cave. She's a godly young lady, and she's here to speak tonight. So if you would give a big round of applause for Miss Taby Adams.
Missionaries and progress and such. Recently, I just got back from a trip to Costa Rica. It was a 10-day mission trip. And I know you're thinking like Costa Rica, like beach, right? No, it was not the beach. So we were actually in the slums of Costa Rica, and I have a few pictures I'm going to show you. I'm sorry if I'm a little nervous. I haven't done this before, but it looks like we're in good company, so this might be good. Cool. All right, so cool. They're not in. Okay. Is that the first one? Cool. Okay, so they're out of order, but that's fine. So our trip was actually in two parts. The first half of our trip we spent in the city for 5 days, and each day we would wake up and go to a village, play with the kids there. None of them spoke English. I mean, sometimes they were really cool if they could say hello, and you're like, oh, cool, like we got that at least. So we'd play with the kids by blowing bubbles, coloring books, letting them paint your nails at least 50 times in 1 hour, and then jump rope, soccer, anything that you could play without talking. That was like what we went to. The second half of the trip, we were in the jungle part of it. This is actually pictures from the jungle. Jungle, like I said. It's a ministry where there's like a mission house, and then there's 10 houses around it. Each house has a mom and a dad and 10 like fosters. They're actually orphans, but we don't have the paperwork to call them orphans, so to us it's like long-term fostering from 5 to 18. The jungle has chickens, goats, which I know doesn't really sound like a jungle. Chickens, goats, cows, horses, iguanas, Jesus Christ lizards, which are lizards that are like this big that run on water. So at least they got that going for them. And I think I said iguanas, and then monkeys. Instead of squirrels, they just have monkeys like everywhere. So while we were in the jungle, we did cement, laying it down for actually a man there named Chili, who's their bodyguard. He's like this little skinny guy, but he actually takes care of everyone there. So we were laying down cement in the new houses, and we were doing like weeds and mowing the lawn and like just little stuff that would end up being big in the end, so they can bring in the next mission team, and it will continue till they have all 10 houses built. I'm a little lost for words. They did have a rope swing there, and they called it Cold River. It's actually one of the warmest rivers I've ever been in, but to them, since it's always like 95 degrees there, like whether it's raining or if it's not raining, it's always hot. So to them, this river's cold. To me, I've been in Creekside over here, and I know that that's not cold. Also, we drank out of coconuts. Every day at work, we'd work for like 5 hours, drink out of a coconut, swim in the river, and then we'd go back to work. Yep. Cool. And then one night the power went out and we had worship. It's kind of hard to see it, but in this video, that's actually Jacob, my friend, beatboxing. And we're all singing with him because none of the power was working, so we couldn't really have a normal worship service. So that's the way we kind of like figured things out that night. And it was actually the first time our interpreter, Pablo, ever went fishing. He's 19 years old, and he's like, I've never even seen a fish unless it was on my plate. So it's really cool to be able to like show him how to fish. And this is their little boys, Micah, Judah, and I don't think he's on here, but they have another son that came and went fishing with us. And so this is their life. It's really cool. They just live in the jungle all the time. And I ended up catching the biggest fish, which I'm kind of proud of. Every morning we usually had rice and beans. This is the last morning, so I was kind of sick of rice and beans by that point, because every single meal it was like rice and beans and then something else with rice and beans in it. But we had French toast, sausage, eggs, and always fruits that they would just go pick and then cut up for us right there. I've never had pineapple that good in my life. What's really cool about Costa Rica is that I feel like it's overcomplicated here in the United States. To them, it's so simplistic. It's like all that they lean on is like God. Like, I'm dependent on God for him to feed me today, and I'm dependent on God for him to feed me tomorrow, and for him to take care of my kids and to send me to school. We were actually supposed to teach at one of the schools there, but we weren't allowed to because there was a shooting the day before we flew in, and it was actually the third one that month. So we weren't allowed to go to the school, but we were allowed to stand outside the school. But then, like, it's crazy because you go into like a third world like sort of atmosphere, and you're like, oh, they're the poor ones. Like, I mean, it's hard to say, but like they don't have like the materials that Americans have. But really, you go in and you realize I'm the poor one. One thing that we were learning is kind of like a triangle. Like, there's God, self and others, and materials. And so we may look at them and see how they are poor materially, but we find ourselves being poor with our relationship with God or our relationship with others and even ourselves. Going to Costa Rica, they are like the way that they connect with each other, like everyone in the community knows everyone and their problems. They're always praying for each other. And their relationship with God was serious because they have so many shootings. It's kind of hard to be a Christian there. In fact, there's not really a lot of men that are Christians in Costa Rica. Most of the men there are just absent from their families. They're alcoholics. They're usually the ones that are bringing drugs. Most of the churches that we went to, it was mainly women that were teaching there, and so it was really hard for us to kind of engage with that because most of our group was guys. That's actually the ranch's job, is because they only take in orphaned boys. They're trying to raise them up in good Christian houses and send them out so they'll go be good leaders in families and in the church and to do their job. This is our interpreter, Pablo. He's the one that had not ever fished. Same age as me, 19, but he's kind of speaking English just a little bit. So that was interesting because he would teach us Spanish while we were teaching him English, and he was a huge help while we were on the trip. This is actually us flying out, I believe. So that is where we were. It's Ala Julita, and that was the city part. So when I say city, it wasn't like New York City. It was kind of like, that's as many people as there was. And probably in each house there was 10 or 15 people and or kids. Well, I guess they're people. So I'm sorry I'm all over the place. That when we were in the city and we were playing with kids, like I said, it was in the morning you play with kids, eat lunch, and then play with kids again. One of the poorest towns we went into is Verbena. In Verbena, you walk through, it's their sewage all runs through the streets, but there was one part where it was the sewage was running through and they just laid pallets over the pipeline. And so when you're walking on the pipeline, you're usually carrying a kid because as you walk by, they're like, gringos, gringos, which means white Americans. And they'd stick their arms out the window and you'd pick them up, and their parents will only let their kids go with gringos. So you'd pick up the kid, and so you're a little bit heavier than usual, and you're walking on these pallets on top of the sewers, and they're so creaky. 10 of our dudes just fell into the sewer with the kids that they were holding, and that's what the kids walk on every single day, and that wasn't even to the middle where they play. So we were walking through Verbena and these pallets, and when you get to the middle, they call it the pines, which is 10 pine trees, and it's just dirt. In the pines, they don't cover up the sewage that runs through the middle of the town, so it's just right there, and so it's half and half. I think I have a picture up there somewhere, so when it gets to it, I'll show you. But so it's dirt, sewage, dirt. That's our prayer walk. But so we went and we would play with them, and we brought soccer balls, and they were kicking the soccer balls, and it would run through the sewage, and then they would just go and pick it right out of it and throw it at you, and you just had to act like you weren't disgusted out of your mind, even though you're just holding this ball. It's got this stuff all over it. And the kids would actually crawl from underneath the house because it was cooler down there than it was in their houses because they're all made of tin and it's 95 degrees and they don't have air conditioning. And then they would paint your nails. All the girls immediately would find a girl that didn't have nail polish on, and you'd have 6 kids paint your nails by the time you're done, and you're like, oh my goodness, there's paint everywhere. And then we have this one guy, Tim, and he's kind of like my brother Bobby over there in the black jacket. He's very big and muscly and quiet as can be. He's so shy. But this little baby girl just crawls out from underneath this house, and we all have had our nails painted so many times. And so she comes up and checks all of her nails, and she sees that there's no one left, and she walks up to Tim that's so tall, the tallest one there, and hands him a thing of blue nail polish and just looks at him. He squats down and she paints his nails. You'll see that on here too. It was so cute because he's such a big guy, but he just let this little bitty girl do it. And then after we went to Verbena and we were playing with them, we actually went to, it's kind of like a church. It's a home church. And the pastor there was actually the only male pastor I'd seen the whole time I was there. And so they were doing a feeding. And so we each had to hold a kid. And like I said, none of them spoke English. You just tried your best. You're like, oh, hello, ¿cómo estás? Come here. And so you'd hold them and they would do prayer. So the preacher would say something, something, something in Spanish, and they would repeat it as loud as they could, and you would just do it because, why not? You're just trying to get involved with them. And so they would do the prayer back and forth, and then they would sing. And so they were singing Our God in Spanish, Our God is greater, and doing like the different hand motions. And so they would sing it in Spanish, and we would sing it in English, which was like the coolest thing I probably have ever been a part of, because they're just surrounded by a bunch of kids, and they're all shorter than me, which is great, because it doesn't take much to be taller than me. And I'm holding all these little kids, and I'm just singing with them, and he might be singing in Spanish, and I'm singing in English, and we're doing the same hand motions, and it means as much to me as it does to him. And the part where it's like, our God is healer, you're supposed to put your hand on your chest, but I always put my hand on his chest. And I don't think I've ever felt someone so tiny. This little boy is like, he told me he was 6. I'm able to hold him, so he wasn't that heavy. And so I held him and I put my hand on his chest, and it was almost like you could feel his back even though you're touching the front of him. So tiny. And what I could understand, he told me he hadn't eaten at all that week and that was the first meal he ate. I think there's a picture of him. He's in a white tank top. I'm holding him, but he actually ate 7 bowls of rice while we were there together. Which is a lot for a little guy. And there was actually another little boy there, that's him, that ate 12 bowls of rice, and he was smaller than this guy. And I was like, I could maybe eat 1 if I was really trying, because they were big bowls of rice. So I think that was probably the highlight of my trip, at least in the city. But I could not pronounce his name, so we called him BB. I actually got to celebrate my birthday too. I was in Costa Rica, and I got to make carnitas, which is what I'm making right there. It's kind of like a corn mixture with beef, potatoes, cheese, or beans in the middle. I was the only white person in the entire building when we were doing this, and nobody spoke English but me, so it was kind of confusing, and they're very serious about their food. So if you mess up, they're like, you're eating that. Like, no, we're not touching it. And I'm like, okay, I'm trying. So that was really intense for me, but it was really cool because I really enjoyed cooking. And this is where the nail painting begins. All of my nail painting pictures in here are actually from one day. I believe that was the first one. And then there was the second one. I think I actually have that's us coloring with the kids. And that is what it looked like 4 kids later. Each nail was a different color, and each one had like 3 layers of paint on each finger. It took me years to get that off. It took forever. And I wish you guys could hear this. Jacob is actually my boyfriend. He's been at college with me the past 9 months, and Pablo, like I said, was our interpreter. Everywhere that we went, they would beatbox, and he would rap in Spanish, and it would actually bring the other teenager boys over to us, and they would just walk with us, and they're like, oh, like dancing. It was so cool. But I thought it'd be kind of cool for you guys to see too. And we also got to hike. We had 2 free days. One day we did a hike, and one day we went zip lining and whitewater rafting in Costa Rica, which was really cool. And we ate pizza there too, and there was a man there that was playing one of those instruments. It was kind of like, I don't know, it's like a piano thing, and you like squeeze it and stuff. Yeah, that thing. And so he was in there playing, which was actually kind of funny because we didn't have any money with us, and we didn't know why he was playing for us. And so we just told him that we appreciated him. And he's like, what is appreciate? And we were like, oh, I don't know. I don't know. And so we gave him pizza instead. And that's this is verbena. So you can see that actually indent right beyond the little girl that's part of the sewage, and then on the other side of me, there's another part of sewage. This is Casey. This is one of the girls that actually came crawling out from underneath the house. This is her favorite game. It's called I pick up all the rocks off the ground, and then we throw them together. So she would hand them to us, and then we count to 3 in Spanish, and we all throw them, and then we put her back down, and she'd collect all the rocks and come find us, and we do it again. All I know is her name is Casey, and that she was like 4, 5. We made her bracelets, and her mom actually asked us if we'd take her with us, and we couldn't, and she was really upset. But she's a cute kid. That's Tim, and that's his blue pretty nails after that little girl had come out and asked if she could paint his nails. You can't really see the size of them right there, but she was like up to maybe his knee, and it was really cute to see them do that. And then we ate a bunch of fruits right there. It's very interesting to eat there versus here because everything here is processed. Everything there is like fresh, like they go kill the chicken, you eat the chicken an hour later. You go outside, you pick the vegetables. Saturday they had a fruit market. The one on the left is like, it's kind of like a tomatillo, like you rip the leaf, but it tastes like a grape on the inside. Mango, and then the little kids there call them hairy eyeballs and booger fruit. The hairy eyeball is a small red like berry with hair on it, and so you rip it open, it's got like a muscadine inside. And then the booger fruit's a passion fruit, and so you break it open, it's got a sack inside, but it looks like boogers, so they call them booger fruit and hairy eyeballs, but in Spanish. All right, this guy, it's already in slow motion, or it was. This is also in verbena. This is the pines where we play with them. He would keep dead eye contact with you when you jump, and he'd use his entire body. He would be so tired by the time we were done jump roping, though. And this is the church. So that's the one male pastor that we met, and that's now, I think that's where I was sitting originally, but so we would just be completely surrounded. This is the very front of this room. It was a really small room, but we packed as many kids as we could, and then after we packed them all, then we just started stacking them so they could see in through the windows, because they knew that if they could see and they heard the message that they got to eat. And that is my little group of boys. I know some of their names. BB is what he let me call him, is the one with the white tank top. I can't remember his name. And the red one is the one that ate 12 bowls of rice. He is so tiny. And then the one with the long hair, actually, we couldn't talk, but he would run his fingers through my ponytail, and then I'd turn around and look at him, and he'd touch his head, and so then I'd run my hand through his hair, and he'd smile so big. It was so cute. Yep. And so this is like where they were doing dishes, and you could not clean that bowl fast enough, because it would come back, and they clean it, and then they come get it and fill it with rice, and it would go right back out. And like bowls went back and forth like 5 or 6 times, because we just could not have enough bowls, nor did we have enough rice, but the kids were so happy after that. This is our way to the jungle. We got in a really sketchy bus and like completely stuffed ourselves in there, and then we went over like a suspension bridge, and our sides of our bus were actually scraping the side of this bridge, and it's going like this as we go, and I'm like, oh, this is great, I'm gonna die today, it's okay, I know Jesus. But so it was a very interesting drive on the way there. I mean, Rainforest is pretty, but you always were like concerned. Yep. That's the bridge. Going over the river. This is what I was talking about. So there's actually 2 rivers there. I don't know how to say Dirty River in Spanish, but one was called Dirty River, and this is Cold River. And they actually intersect, but right where they intersect, it's like Brown River and Clear River, and they would perfectly like go past each other and not turn the other one brown or turn the other one clear, which was really cool. And this is where I almost died, but I didn't, praise God. And then as soon as we got there, those little boys that you seen earlier, they like runned up to us, the little white ones, and they started handing us these guavas off the trees. That was the way that they greeted people, which was really cool. But you have to be careful, because usually the first bite you might get a worm. And this is actually me coming out of the mission house. So this is the jungle. It doesn't look like it right there, but we keep the grass pretty good cut while we're there. On the left, you'll see in a second, if I'm not so shaky, or the right now. They actually had pineapples growing like right there, and on the other side, there's pineapple trees. They're like pica trees is what they call them. They're little green coconuts that we would drink every day, and the river's right there. This morning I actually saw my first monkey like in the wild. I'm like, I'm not at a zoo and I just seen a monkey. I'm so cool. So that was very fun and very interesting. We do like the 10-point game here with like a squirrel. Like, you hit the squirrel, it's like 10 points. There's the monkeys there. They're everywhere. Like, monkeys, just tons of them. And there's a monkey. It's really funny because they're the howler monkeys, so they sound like these huge animals, like angry dogs, like barking and sirens. And then they come out and they're like this big. And you're like, what? Like, you hear a Great Dane and you see a Chihuahua come out and you're like, this isn't right. But there'd be one of them, and you could hear it for miles. That's one of the loudest animals I've ever heard. And this is the Jesus lizard, which I thought was kind of cool. I didn't really like that it was called the Jesus lizard at first, but at least they know that Jesus was the one that walked on water, which I think is kind of cool. Even the locals will call the lizard the Jesus Christ lizard. It's kind of in the leaves. I don't know if you can see it. It's got a fin. Oh, well, there you go. I'll make sure you see it. It's got a fin, and it's all curled up, but it's like this big. And they just try to spook them next to the water because they rear their front arms up and just run on their back legs across the water. It's so cool. And that is me holding a baby goat, which I did every morning. They milk all their goats there, and they use their milk for coffee creamer, cheese, and just milk in general. They're a very like self-sustaining farm. And there's the other goat, because I thought the goats were cute. That's Caleb. That's the other boy that wasn't with us. He would always, every morning, he'd like build a swing out of like a dog leash and a tire. And he's like, come try my new swing. And you're like, I think I'll choose life. Oh, you do it. And then he would like pick up these goats that were obviously the size of him. And he'd come over to you and be like, hold my goats. Like, he was so excited because he was actually born in Florida and then moved to the jungle. So he knows that his life is not normal and that it's really cool now. And they had a dog named Diesel. When Diesel stood up, he's taller than me, and I know that doesn't take much, but that's still a big dog. And Diesel's job was to kill snakes, chase monkeys, and whenever the kids were swimming, if they called for Diesel, he would jump in and swim to them so they could grab the scruff of his neck, and he would take them to the bank. I wish I could say that my dog chases monkeys, but they don't. This is us milking the goats in the morning. Judo with a goat. I'm serious, I really did like the goats. And that's my roommate, Maddie. She also spent her birthday while she's in Costa Rica, and this is all of them telling her happy birthday. And there's the pineapples right outside my window, which is cool because I thought they were in trees, but they're actually like on this bush thing, so there's that. You learn something new every day. And this is the bridge that we were on at first with the bus, but now we're walking on it. I felt like 100 times safer. And one day we were actually cleaning termites out of a box where the kids' toys actually were. They were keeping everything in cardboard boxes, and I went in there, there's no light, and it looked like the floor was moving. And I was like, what on earth? So I turned my flashlight on, and it's just covered in termites. And I go and grab Josh, the guy that works there, and his kids run in, and they put their arms down on the ground, and the termites are crawling on them, and they start eating them. And I'm like, oh my goodness, what just happened? They actually eat termites there because they have a lack of food, and it tastes like peppermint, which I think is really gross. But the kids love it. So I was moving boxes, and these 3 little kittens actually came crawling out of the hole. And they had I guess they had just been born there. And I was like, okay, this is great. We get to hold kittens now. So we held kittens. And then the first picture you saw, right after I held a kitten, I held a baby. So I could say it was a really good day. Cool. Awesome. So that's all my pictures. I have more. I actually had 400, so you're lucky you didn't get all of those. But I just wanted to show you guys that. I was with 6-8 Ministries in Costa Rica, Alalita. I plan on going back there next summer. I actually got offered a job to be one of the moms that live on campus and to have 10 of the little boys be mine. So I'll be finishing school this next coming years in Philadelphia, and then if the Lord still wanted me to go there, I will go there. So I'd like you guys to be praying for that, and also thinking about it, because if anyone's interested in going next year, you're welcome to come with us. I don't know exactly how much it'd be, but we can talk about it after church. And I did bring these for you guys to look at. So these are my shoes that were brand new before I went. They were completely white. The first kids that were there actually took them off of my feet and colored them with markers and nail polish. And then they ended up being black because they walk everywhere. I mean, we drove in the sketchy bus across the sketchy bridge on the way to the jungle, but everywhere else we walk. So if this is what my shoes look like, you should see their shoes there because they walk everywhere all the time. But I would wash your hands after you touch these because I did walk through verbena and whatnot in them. But yep, so that's what I had. Thanks for listening.